Hello and welcome to the Punch Show. Hi, Sugar. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. I know I am. Yesterday I had to take the day off. I had a migraine. I get these really bad migraines sometimes. I tried streaming through one time and I like literally puked midstream. So good thing I had a bucket and it wasn't like live puking or anything. But yeah, it was not good. So anyway, how are you doing, Sugar? I hope you're doing good. We'll probably revisit this later. But I just got to say, I'm feeling pretty good today after the USA big win last night. Man, I don't know if Harry will pop on. I was hoping Harry would be here. But what a win. What a win. I felt like I'm not like really a big soccer fan. I don't watch a lot of soccer, but or like football if you want to call it that. But it seemed like that red card thing was a little bit unnecessary to me. I'm not sure exactly what he was supposed to do with his foot. I think it seemed like it was entirely just incidental contact. And even I would say unavoidable contact. Hey, Deb, how are you doing today? Good to see you. I don't know how they would have even like not made the contact. They were just kind of both going for the ball and got in each other's way and got tangled up. And so I didn't really feel like I've been told what's his name? And I'm told everybody says his name wrong by a friend of mine from Africa. But I'm Folarin Balogun. I think they pronounce it Balogun on TV, but I think if it were actually pronounced Balogun, then he wouldn't be saying everybody pronounces his name wrong. But anyway, I don't know what he was supposed to do. Like, was he just supposed to like cut off his leg? I don't know how he was supposed to avoid what happened. Oh, thank you, Redux, for the silver stars there. I appreciate that. So anyway, I was like, man, because that was a big deal to get that red card and to have like a third of the game they were down one man and they actually extended their lead another by one more goal after that. And like I said, I'm not a big soccer fan, so I don't know all the rules and everything, and I'm not going to pretend I know more than I do. But I was screaming. I was sitting right in this chair, my eyes locked on the TV, and I was screaming my head off. I felt like it was patriotic. I felt patriotic for a minute. I felt like, hey, this is neat. We're about to have our 250th birthday. And the guy that scored the first goal and he's now scored 3 goals in this World Cup. He is only the third person since 1930 third men to score 3 goals in the same World Cup for the U.S. Sounds like he won't be in the next match, but he should be. He didn't do anything wrong. Anyway, if any of you are actual soccer fans and want to correct me on that, let me know. Or if I'm right, let me know. I just felt like that was not a good call. I'm not sure what he was supposed to do with his other foot. But still, that the U.S. Faced that adversary and just slapped it down. I was really inspired. I was really happy American last night. And now we've got the opposite of that going on in Washington, D.C. right now with the 250th birthday coming up this weekend. And I lived in England in 1976. I was 9 years old. And it was kind of even over there. Oh, Redux is he's a professional. I'm in a professional soccer team. Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that you know more about soccer than I am, since like you do it for a living. What are your thoughts on that red card? I'm happy to hear them, because if I'm wrong, correct me. But I understand it's like it doesn't have to be intentional or something, but it seems like if it's just completely unavoidable, then like I don't know exactly what he was supposed to do. Maybe he should have been like that Republican congressman and just like teleported somewhere else. I don't know how he was supposed to have avoided that contact. But that's, that's the opinion of somebody that really doesn't know what they're talking about. So at least I'll admit I don't know what I'm talking about on this one. But on the other thing, you've got Trump trying to make this 250th anniversary about himself. And like I was saying, like I lived in England in 1976 during the bicentennial. And it was really something. Even in England, they were kind of making it a big deal. They had Madame Tussauds, the wax museum. They had a big thing there, a big display there. The rebellion in the Americas. I thought that was funny. So Redux has never gotten a red card. Do you think that he deserved a red card, or so they had this thing called the rebellion in the Americas, and they went through the whole revolution and what happened and everything, and they had the Declaration of Independence there, and they made it about America. Even in England, they made it about America. And now we've got the 250th coming up, and Donald Trump doesn't want to make this about America. Donald Trump wants to make this about Donald Trump. And that's just sad to me. Like this should be about all of us. This should be about the country, not this guy. I kick very good. It's also kind of funny because sometimes on the mall it looks like there's more people on a soccer pitch than there is on at that celebration thing they're doing. So anyway, he's gonna have, I guess he's like gonna speak at 9 p.m. because he wants to speak at prime time, and he's gonna speak forever, and it's gonna be like 4,500 degrees, and people are gonna be sitting there collapsing from heat stroke, and he doesn't care because he's Donald Trump and he's got to prove he can do it. He's just got to be everything. Everything. It's just got to be about Donald Trump with him. It's so annoying. And it's like, you got Republicans sitting there saying, why can't we just get behind the president for this? And it's like, because I don't want to get behind the president for it. Why can't the president get behind the country for this? That's what I want to know. Why can't I get behind the guy that spent the last 2 weeks calling me a Democrat the guy that calls me an enemy of the people, the guy that says I hate America because I didn't vote for him, the guy that would actually has police or has federal agents showing up to the house of poll workers because they posted something on immigrant Instagram he didn't like. Why can't I get behind him? You know, you didn't get behind Joe Biden. Why couldn't you get behind Joe Biden? As far as I know, in America, we're allowed to disagree with the president. That's part of what we're supposed to be celebrating. We literally established this country to say that we are not about one man ruling us. Hey, Harry, how you doing? I was hoping you'd be here. Just talked about it a little bit. Did you think that red card last night was a good call or not? Because I thought it was a bad call, but again, I don't know. Red Rux is actually, or Redux, I'm sorry. Redux is actually a professional soccer player. So, but what do you think? Was that a good call or not? I know you watch more football than I do. Or soccer. I guess I should call it football for you. But anyway, I don't know what to do. I really want this to be a celebration of America, and I really wish it would be. And there was supposed to be. There was a whole America 250 thing that Congress funded. There were all kinds of musical acts that were coming. And then Donald Trump just decides he's going to make it about himself. He changes it to Freedom 250. He steals the money. Apparently, they've stolen the money that was supposed to be for Freedom 250. Now it's, or for America 250, it's now gone to Freedom 250, which is just basically a Trump rally. And so he's going to give this horribly partisan speech, in front of the Lincoln Monument or whatever, where he, divides the country. And they want to know, oh, well, why can't I just get behind the president? And I'm just wondering, why can't the president get behind the country? Unless you're in the executive branch, in which, according to Donald Trump, you're not allowed to disagree with Trump's interpretation of law. Yeah, and you're only allowed to be in the executive branch if you agree with Trump's interpretation of the law, because he fired everybody that doesn't agree with him. The bicentennial was amazing. How I wish we were doing right by America for this semi-quintessential. It was just so sad. I mean, we should be able to feel patriotic and happy about this. We all should. We should all feel like this is our country. It is not. The country does not belong to MAGA just because they want to make America great again, and because they put the flag in their bios. They're not any more American than Democrats are. They don't have any more love or affection for America. I'd say maybe in some ways it seems like they have less, because the very things which established America, they seem to hate. I was talking yesterday posted yesterday on Twitter. Like, when you look at American culture, they're always like the immigrants. Why can't they assimilate to American culture? And I'm like, that's what American culture is. It's the assimilation of immigration. You look at everything in our culture. You look at our music, our call and response. Country music, jazz music, rock and roll, blues, all of that evolved from call and response, which came from Africa. You look at our, like TV, Go back to Lucille Ball and stuff. All of that evolved from vaudeville. Vaudeville was brought over here by the Irish, the Germans. It was immigrants, mostly the Irish, but other cultures too. You want to look at Hollywood and Broadway, all of that was influenced by Eastern European Jews. You talk about our food. Well, I mean, obviously, you've got all the ethnic foods, right? Which is a good portion of what we eat. Where would we be without Mexican food, Chinese food, Italian food? But even the foods that we call American foods, like hamburgers, came from Germany. Hot dogs came from Germany. Apple pie came from Holland, and some from England. Apples aren't even American. You talk about sports, so like cricket and baseball both kind of evolved from a game called rounders. They're like cousins, but they came that came from England. You've got rugby became football, that came from England, and then you've got basketball was invented by a Canadian. So when you talk about, like, why don't the immigrants assimilate into our culture? Our culture is courtesy of the immigrants. You cannot separate our culture from immigration. And, there's like this whole thing about the melting pot. And I don't actually like the metaphor of a melting pot entirely, but I like the pot part. I think of it as a soup pot. I say it's a soup pot because, like, if you make chicken noodle soup, the noodles are still the noodles. The chicken is still the chicken. The carrot's still the carrot. The onions are still the onions. The celery's still the celery. Like, all the individual components retain their individuality. But the broth picks up the flavor of all of it, and the herbs and everything like that. That is the assimilation of flavors that are in the soup. Everything else is distinct. So I think that's our culture, right? Our culture is the broth, but we still have Irish Americans, right? We still have St. Patrick's Day and shamrocks and all of that. We still have, like German beers, and we still have pasta and Italian foods, and we still have actual Mexican food, as well as like Americanized Mexican food and actual Chinese food, as well as Americanized Chinese food. Some of it has become more American, but it all evolved from other places. Our country is an assimilation of immigration. You can't sit there and say, why don't the immigrants assimilate? And the thing is, if you go through history, and every single chapter, you had people like today's MAGAs complaining about how the immigrants didn't want to learn the language. The immigrants didn't want to assimilate. How this group of immigrants was different than the last. So Ron says your beard looked like it stank. Okay. Why are you gay? Assimilation. What are we? The Borg now? Yeah, in a way, I guess. But I don't think I don't know if it's like we're all conquered by one mindset or something like that. I think it's more like the soup, like I was saying. I'm not buying Taylor Swift. I don't like apple pie that much, and Chevrolet sucks. What about Ronald Reagan and his movies? But anyway, I think we've got 250 years to celebrate. I think we've been through a lot as a country. And Saturday, is it Saturday? Yeah, Saturday. We'll turn 250. and we'll have this cantankerous old man that's narcissistic and self-serving steal it from us. And that's why nobody wants to go. Well, at least, like that's why the liberals don't want to go. Why would they? What incentive has he given them to want to go? What reason? He's the most divisive president in American history. And I don't mean he's, like they'll sit there and they go, whoa, what about Obama? As though Obama did anything divisive. Obama didn't call Republicans redumplicans or anything like that. Obama didn't call the media traitors or enemies of the people. Donald Trump is just an enormously divisive person. And now you get Republicans sitting there going, why won't you just get behind the president? What do you think of the new Netflix program of the American Experiment? It's a 5-episode documentary about America's founding. It is comedy gold. I have not watched that yet. That's the one with Larry David, right? I want to watch that, but I want to watch that when my mind is right for it, because I think I've got to be in the right mood. Like I've got to be not doing something else and kind of commit myself to it. I've been rewatching TV show. I don't know if you guys get HBO Max over there, Harry, but there's a movie called Warriors, which is kind of like first of all, if you like action stuff, it's a really great series. It's just great for action. It's some of the people that are involved in the John Wick stuff are involved in this series. It's really well done action wise, but it also discusses an era of our history that we don't really discuss that much, which is San Francisco and around the turn of the 20th century when the Chinese Exclusion Act was being passed, and what was just the racism against Chinese people then. And it's really good. Not feeling flying the flag this Saturday. Yeah. That's something else. Yeah, right. You don't see a lot of people flying the flag right now. I don't think our patriotism is at an all-time high. And I don't even see it from the MAGAs. I don't see MAGA flying flags in the... It's just... I think there's a lot of MAGAs that are kind of realizing that they got taken... that are starting to realize that they got taken by Trump. So Harry is laughing. I'm not sure when I was laughing. What? I must have said something funny. I love Donald Trump is making $1 billion and yet is nickel and diming people on SNAP benefits and college loans. Yeah, that's the other thing that is worth talking about today. He turned over his finances stuff, and he has over 25,000 trades since his second term started. To put that in perspective, all of Congress combined, everyone in Congress combined over that same span has 13,000. So that's 500 people versus one, and he's got twice as many as all 500 of them. And we worry about Congress having too much of that, right? We're already saying, we need to make this a law. He's got more than twice as many as everyone in Congress combined. And Nancy Pelosi, who a lot of people have issues with in terms of, her trading activity, in her entire career has 200 transactions. So he's got 11 times as many transactions since he became president than she does in her entire career. And there are things where he is making money off of this cryptocurrency, And the company that helped him get his cryptocurrency, his kids have a part of ownership in too. And he gave the former CEO of it, who was convicted of pardoning or of laundering money for drug cartels and human traffickers. Donald Trump pardoned him, and now he's got these like billions of dollars in crypto from the same company that guy used to work for. But Hunter Biden sold a painting. Hunter Biden sold a painting. They just wigged out because Hunter Biden sold a painting. Now, of course, if any MAGAs around here, they're gonna talk about how, oh yeah, you're okay with Hunter Biden sold a painting. No, what I'm not okay with is you making a big stink about Hunter Biden selling a painting, and then you're ignoring what Donald Trump is doing right now. Because there are differences. Hunter Biden sold a painting. Hunter Biden may have even used his name. Hunter Biden may have even used promises of being able to connect to his dad. But what we don't see there is anything that his dad ever did for anybody he sold a painting to. We don't see anything that the president did to benefit anybody that bought the painting. Like, if Hunter Biden sold the painting and then he made all these like really, really friendly AI stuff and got some kind of Biden cryptocurrency out of it, then I'd have a problem with that. There was no quid pro quo to speak of, like there plainly is here. And I know some people be like, oh, how do you know he did it? And it's like, if I see this little thing walking around with wings and it's yellow and it quacks and it waddles, I'm not going to look at that and say, oh, look, it's a frog. I mean, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it must be Donald Duck. Actually, my wife just laughed at that one in the other room. Feeding children with, that would be what Christ would do, the shame. Yes, I agree. But I mean, it's like, and that they're taking money, they're doing all this. He's like gilding, like literally gilding the White House with gold, while he takes food from children through SNAP benefits, and selling pardons and selling speeches and selling dinners at Mar-a-Lago and selling just about anything else, and then golfing at his own golf course while he charges the American government for the golf course that he is golfing on, which he owns. If you look at the money that have been paid to Donald Trump's golf courses during the 5+ years he's been president, this is fascinating. He has actually charged the American government more money for the Secret Service staying at his golf courses and whatnot than Tiger Woods has made in his entire career. Donald Trump has made more money playing golf than any professional golfer in history. Oh, but he doesn't take a paycheck. He takes hundreds of millions of dollars from the American taxpayers. But he doesn't cash his $400,000 a year paycheck, which means nothing to him. At least he says he doesn't. Has anyone caught the story about Venezuela? The number of people who were devoted were killed in a collapsed building in the earthquake. Yeah, I saw that. There were they were deported. They had just gotten there. They were in they were in this building. They were in the same hotel, and then the hotel like was destroyed in the earthquake and they all died. It's really sad. House says we eaten oranges for the next week. These white people got it for free. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that, House. We eaten oranges for the next work. These white people got it. Got what for free? The oranges? I didn't get any oranges. So yeah, so that's the next thing that we can talk about if anybody wants to weigh in on that. He's got this, incredibly, like, we knew how corrupt it was, but he's like, they're Josh Hawley, this is funny. Josh Hawley actually has an act called the Pelosi Act. You know how they make everything into acronyms? And he says it's a nonpartisan bill, right? But it's just called the Pelosi Act by coincidence. But he's got this Pelosi Act, which is supposed to make it, like regulate when Congress people can make transactions. And in principle, I don't have an issue with that. I think calling it the Pelosi Act makes it seem like she's the only one that ever traded any stocks, and also makes it sound like she has done something illegal. She has never done anything illegal. And, you want to regulate it more, that's fine. But I haven't seen Josh Hawley run this fast since January 6th, 2021. He is suddenly he has nothing to say about, insider trading laws and stuff like that. Eat every day, only for the rich. I like that, Josh. Oh, I can't stand Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley is a snake. He really is. He is a dishonest person. Josh Hawley sat there and tried to cozy up to the insurrectionists. He raises his fist. Yeah, go team. No, I don't like Josh Hawley. If Josh Hawley wants to write legislation that says that it should be like just Congress shouldn't be allowed to trade stocks at all or whatever, or that I don't know what his solution is. I think that it's like there are some issues I have to where I think sometimes people don't think things all the way through. Like, I don't think that we should make it being in Congress, like, you shouldn't be able to use your position in Congress to make millions of dollars off the stock market. But I also don't think that being in Congress means that you should have to, like, sell your 401k. Otherwise, you're making it so that you have to have, you're putting basically a wealth, you have to be wealthy to be a member of Congress, because you can't save up for, like, you can't have any kind of investments or anything. So I think there's got to be some regulation, but I don't think you can just say, oh, if you made money as a congressman, you're bad. A lot of politicians are millionaires, though. I don't recall one who isn't. Not like some of it's complicated. I mean, when you're a congressman, makes $170,000 a year, so it's not like they're not making a decent income just off of their congressional income. And a lot of them are, but like AOC wasn't rich when she became one. I don't think she's rich still. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lauren Boebert, I think, was not rich, but I mean, at least not by, filthy rich standards. AOC isn't a millionaire. Bernie was in public service for 40 years before he made money with his books. Joe Biden, actually. Joe Biden was not a millionaire until after he was vice president. As long as he was in office, he was never a millionaire until after he left. Trump, his son-in-law, Israel, and Iran are walking together to manipulate the markets with their constant deal and peace agreements. Yeah. So Jared Kushner is a perfect example of somebody that's so corrupt that if you look him up in the dictionary, it's like the word corrupt says, don't put me in the same paragraph as Jared Kushner. I'm not that bad. Who writes the laws in the U.S.? Because in the U.K., MPs get given solicitors to write the laws. They want for them to Congress people have to personally write their own laws. You mean in terms of actually typing it out on the computer screen? I think either they do it or their staffers do it probably. But technically they do, the lawmakers, the representatives and the senators and whatnot. But I think more important than who is actually, doing the typing is, I'll tell you a little story here. When I was in college, there was a guest speaker that came, and he was like an activist. And he was telling us, we were talking about things. This was in 1994. And it was during the whole savings and loan scandal was going on. And so I was asking him about something to do with that. And I was just like, one of the issues was a lot of the stuff that was obviously wrong that they were doing wasn't illegal. And I was like, how can this stuff be legal? And he said, you have to understand. There is a difference between the wrong things poor people do and the wrong things rich people do. The wrong things poor people do, they make illegal because they affect the rich people. But the wrong things rich people do, they don't make against the law because they only affect the poor people. You like that? That stuck with me. And you know who that person was? This is like my Paul Harvey moment. That was Barack Obama in 1994. I had a lunch appointment because I stuck around to talk to him afterwards. And so we talked for about 10 minutes. And then I was 10 minutes late for a lunch appointment. And I ran into, I went and I got my friend who was still waiting for me. And he's like, well, why are you late? And I said, I think I was just talking to the first black president of the United States. And he laughed. He thought I was joking. Anyway, the whole political world is corrupted from the top of the bottom. I don't agree with that. I think that's an overly general statement. And I think that there is this kind of, and I say this as somebody that has not necessarily been personally involved in that, but I have been adjacent to it. My dad was a diplomat, and so I've known people, and I just disagree. I think that there are plenty of people that are in politics that are not corrupt, that are honest people, that really are in it because they want to make people better. It's like when people say the pharmacy industry is corrupt. No, some people want to find cures for people and heal people. I think there are good people and bad people in every profession. But I think that we do have the tendency in politics, corruption, the people that make the rules are not necessarily going to make the things they do against the rules. It serves the wealthy. That is everything, though. Everything in society is that way. The owner of the business makes everything for his business. I think that's actually the one way that we have out of that is through politics, because we like we can do things like form unions and form voter movements and change the rules through momentum. So I hear what you're saying, and I understand why people feel like all of politics is corrupt, because you got like the little, swamp drainer that could up there. But like, I don't think Obama was corrupt. I'm not saying that means he's perfect, but I don't think he was corrupt. And you have to trust that they don't abuse campaign funds. Well, that's going to be a lot harder now, thanks to the Supreme Court. Exactly, terrible. Is AOC Bernie and that other independent senator, but they both caucus with the Democrats in the Senate. Yeah. But there's other Democrats in the Senate that I think are like Whitehouse, Sheldon Whitehouse. I like him. Regime change nets a country's gold reserves. I don't know what you mean by that. Sorry, Turble. In those 1,000 pages of financial documents, did any of them mention how much he contributed to his so-called Board of Peace? Have those seen a dime yet? The Board of Peace thing is such a joke. I don't think that the people in Palestine are on board with that. And they never will be. I don't know why they might have issues. Like, if you look at the whole history of everything that has led to the point we're at, there are 3 countries that are primarily responsible for the Palestinian people, like basically being just driven out all the way to the ocean. And those 3 countries are England, the United States, and Israel. So I don't think those 3 countries basically ruling Gaza is something that the Palestinian people are going to be enthusiastic about. It's going to be found out in a decade or two how much of the traitor Trump is and where he is and what he's doing working with Israel and Iran and God knows who else to manipulate markets. Even like right now, it's hard to find somebody that voted for Bush even though he won. You can't find that many people that admit they voted for Bush. Walter might have voted for Bush. But it's hard to find people that voted for Bush and still admit they voted for Bush. Everybody wants to pretend they were against Bush. Can't find people that voted for Nixon. I guess J.D. Vance would have. And you don't have anybody that you have all kinds of people that voted for Obama that didn't vote for Obama. Like, everybody wants to say they voted for Obama. I voted for Obama and for Trump. No, you didn't. But anyway, in 20 years, you're not going to find anybody that voted for Trump. Central banks deposit thousands of tons of gold in London vaults. I have no idea about anything about that. The rich and powerful are robbing the very people who they are meant to protect and serve. Political systems need to be scrapped and all world leaders put on trial for crimes against humanity. Okay. That seems like a strong opinion there. Trust me, I don't know if every single world leader has committed a crime against humanity. I think that might be a little bit of hyperbole there. Trust me, the entire U.S. healthcare system is a poop show from top to bottom. But not everybody in it is. Like, there are doctors that just want to make people better, and that's why they're in it. I know some of them, they're like, just being a doctor does not make you a bad person. That's you don't follow Orange still, do you? I don't know what I don't know what that means. What I don't understand is this congressional approval rates couldn't be lower, yet reelection rates couldn't be higher. Um, because it's a kind of a not my congressman attitude. It's everybody else's congressman is at fault, not my congressman. My congressman brings me, brings home the bacon. My congressman brings funding here, but actually, it has become less of a certainty. More and more people are getting, uh, incumbency is not the certainty it used to be. Like back in the 80s and 90s, it was like 90% of incumbents won re-election. You don't have that anymore. And now you're getting more and more people primaried. Well, what about Egypt? They don't want them either. Yeah, they don't want Hamas. And I think that sometimes people have a problem distinguishing between Hamas and the Palestinians in Gaza. So what happened in 2001? Was it 2006, 2007, somewhere around there? I can't remember the exact year. That's the last time there was an election in Gaza. And actually, Hamas didn't even win a majority of the vote. They won with the plurality of the vote. And over half the population of Gaza that is alive now was not even born yet. It's that whole region is very young, and like more than half of it is below the age of 20 or something like that. So only if you look at it, I figured out the math on this, and it was like 5 or 6% of the current population of Gaza actually ever voted for Hamas. Most of Gaza is not Hamas, but Hamas is like the other Arab states don't like Hamas. They don't. Nobody wants terrorists like coming to their country, and so that's why Egypt doesn't want them to come, because they're worried about Hamas. Yeah, and then James says most of those people are dead. Too much time has passed, and a lot of them, like, if you voted for Hamas, the stronger you were for Hamas, the more likely you are to be dead, because you were probably participating in the violent conflicts. So I was right. Yeah. So Walter is Walter's an old school Republican. I should see if I can get Joe Walsh on here again. Walter would probably love that. He also voted for McCain. Poor McCain. I mean, I wasn't going to vote for McCain either. McCain lost the moment that he chose Sarah Palin. That woman, I like to say Donald Trump is Sarah Palin with a penis. I mean, that's about how much substance he has. There was I had a friend that, like, he was a Bush Republican. He was a big fan of Bush, and he's an old school Republican. And there was an interview with Sarah Palin where they asked her to name any Supreme Court case other than Roe versus Wade. And she hemmed and hawed. She could not think of a single court case other than Roe v. Wade. Not Plessy versus Ferguson or Brown versus the Board of Education. Not one other case. Not even, Dred Scott or anything like that. Could not think of another case other than Roe v. Wade. And I just think, if the vice president of the United States should be able to name 2 Supreme Court cases. And so, anyway, of all the Republicans, McCain was probably the one that I could identify with the most. I felt like he was a decent person. I feel like this is my feeling. This is what I was thinking about McCain. All right. It's kind of like the good and the bad in one moment is when the one lady in the town hall asked him about Obama and saying Obama was a Muslim. And then McCain defended Obama and said, look, I know him. I've worked with him. He's not a Muslim, and kind of stood up for Obama. And so he's gotten a lot of credit for that over the years. But I was actually kind of bothered by that because he allowed for the premise that there's something wrong with being a Muslim. I would have just said, he's not a Muslim, and if he were, so what? I think, if somebody's an Islamic extremist, then I have concerns, but I also have concerns if they're a Christian right extremist. I don't want somebody who's going to use their religion to make rules and laws for everybody that don't affect other people. So anyway, good for him for sticking up for Obama, but kind of bad on him for denigrating a third of the people in the world. The U.S. healthcare system doesn't work on healing people. It works on putting them on treatment that could last a lifetime. Therefore, after you go, well, yeah. I think like I said, there are issues with the treatment, with the system, but let's not conflate the system with the people that are in that system. I know plenty of people that are nurses, that are doctors, that are good, decent people that just want to take care of other people for a living. They love other people and they would like to see them get better. I'm not gonna judge them for the only system that they can work in. But the thing is, you go to these countries like Jordan, who have take millions of refugees, like 1 million Syrians and 24 million Palestinians, and the rest are Jordanians. Yeah. Did you know that the country up until recently, the country with the most refugees in it was Lebanon? 40% of the population was Palestinian refugees. I know the other Joe Walsh, the singer. I would love to meet the other Joe Walsh. He seems like my Maserati does 185. They took my license. Now I don't drive. I love that song. Joe Walsh was awesome. But they will make a clear distinction between Syrian Jordanians and Palestinian Jordanians and Jordanian Jordanians. What about Michael Jordanians? Okay. I'm hoping that one landed. It probably did not. And they will say they don't want Palestinians in this country because we are a peaceful country and they're angry people, and we don't want angry people here. Like, they're very open about the reasons why they don't take refugees anymore. Oh, look, my pick would make a good CD cover. It's hard to see it from here. It looks like, sorry, it's too small from where I'm at. And so if you had a garage band, what would your garage band, what would your garage band be called? The Dixon? I don't know. No more criminal leaders. We should be voting on decisions, not criminal leaders that are members of a secret society. I don't know about that. I think one thing that people overlook when it talks about, like, we should vote on issues and stuff is how stupid the American people are in general, and just people in general. As George Carlin said, Think about how stupid the average person is, and then realize half the people are stupider than that. Um, I think that there is something to be said about knowing what you're doing, and we've devalued expertise. That's why I have a problem with term limits too. I feel like, you need people that actually learn a thing, and sometimes it takes more than 2 years to really learn about a topic. So I want experts, and expertise takes time, whether it's expertise for legislation or expertise for actual practicing. Got to see him before the Eagles and with the Eagles. Man, the Eagles were my jam back in the day. When I grew up, I mean, I don't know. My brothers used to make fun of my music taste, but like I was like my favorite bands were Journey, Eagles, and Styx. I had a lot of music I liked, but for some reason those were, and Queen was my favorite by far. Still is. I love Queen. And Freddie Mercury at Band Aid, like just maybe the greatest live performance in the history of rock and roll. That specific performance. And I didn't even know he had AIDS when he was doing that. Trump is a gangster who has ordered extrajudicial killings at sea in stark contravention to international law, murdering pirate scumbag and Zionist puppet. Yes. Now, Donald Trump is an outright criminal. That's called murder, what he did. And we seem to have just glossed over that because, now he started a war in Iran. But we've just kind of glossed over the fact he just murdered people on the Caribbean. The guitar player for the Eagles, that's him. I would just love to sit down and talk to him. You don't write a song like that and not be an interesting person. And I also think the British role in the Middle East is overblown and very much American pushed. The British role in the Middle East now is very different than the British role in the Middle East, like in before World War I with what was that? There was a whole series of stuff. Balfour Declaration, was it called, or something like that? Anyway, England was making deals with everybody to give them that land, and then they carved it up with France. And even prior to that, they had started to look at the situation. The Jewish population was growing, and they were starting to have some dissent there. And that's actually was a British general, Montgomery or something, I think his name was, that was the first one to say, look, the only way out of this is a two-state solution. And so that two-state solution, that was the first mention of the two-state solution. So when I say England is one of the countries responsible, I'm talking mostly about the time from like World War I to up to World War II. Since World War II, it's more America. Kitty, my buddy. Oh, hey, if you want to come on, let me know. I'll send you a link. I had to change the channel thing here. But if you want to come on, just say so. I'll even, hang on a second. I'm going to just send this to you. Now, for those of you who watch the show a lot or that are familiar with Kitty, she is one of the people on the Epstein files that she knows more about the Epstein files than almost anybody you could possibly know. And she has worked with people that know even more than her on the Epstein files. And she has a new website out. It's called Butterfly something or other. Kitty, I just sent you a link, an invite to your Blue Sky DM. But anyway, if you want to come on and talk about this, they've got a whole new website out. If you ever want to know anything about the Epstein files, go to that website. It's fantastic. I'll see if I can find the link and put it in the description on YouTube. But that's why she hasn't been around here lately. She's been getting this whole thing going. But I'm so happy to see you, Kitty. You just got to figure what kind of audience you're dealing with. Speaking of nursing, what's going to happen to things like home health care with all the deportation? The Haitians make a significant percent of the healthcare workers, the in-home healthcare workers. And, it's just these people, when I say these people, I mean the MAGA racists. They don't understand that immigrants actually have value. These Haitians, they actually contribute to America. It's so disgusting that they can't even see that. And it's really sad what's going to happen. A lot of these people that have their parents, a lot of these Gen X's whose baby boomer parents are in nursing homes right now or in hospices, all of a sudden their parents are going to suffer because they're celebrating that TPS is done. Because in December 1968, when PM Wilson announced we were leaving the remaining Middle Eastern colonies, the UAE offered to pay us to stay there. I don't know anything about that. I was 1 year old at the time. You talking to me? You talking to me? I don't see anybody else here. You must be talking to me. I'm talking to everybody. Minor Response is my GarageBand name. That's a good one. Yes, when I was asking about the GarageBand name, James, that was you. Maybe how does the Dixon Cups sound or something like that? If we were so evil, why did they want us to stay? I don't know. This could be free advertising. The James Gang was great early in the 70s. Yeah, you could be the James Gang. Or now there's a good, like Benjamin. That right there, your name was already a garage name. Benjamin, that is an awesome garage name. It's almost like you came on here just to show what a great garage band name your actual name is. Oh, the name of bands locally hated. Band name, the Shower Singers. So there's a Benjamin, who you should just be Benjamin. There was a guy that used to follow me on Twitter. I don't know if I think he left Twitter when Elon bought it, but his name was Dustin, N-G-Y-U-N, Dustin Wynn. And I told him he should just make his Twitter name Dustin the Win. And he did. He actually thought it was funny. He's like, I never thought about that. Bibi Netanyahu is a wanted war criminal. Yeah, who wants him? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he's also evil. I think we have this issue right now where people feel like there's too many people that try to hyperbolize other people's feelings on Israel. Like, it's possible to be against Netanyahu and still say that Israel has should be able to exist as a nation, and that Gaza should be able to exist as a nation, and that Hamas is evil, and that most of the people in Israel don't agree with what Netanyahu is doing, and most of the people, Palestinians, don't agree with what Hamas is doing. Like, it's possible to have a more nuanced view of the world than some people want to have. Jackal is one of my favorites, and Croc is kick-ass. There's a TV show called Jackal on Peacock that's good. Who wrought Dust in the Wind? And which band? Kansas made the song. He does so much poop, you can't keep up with all the crimes he commits. He's probably committed at least 2 or 3 crimes just since I started this show. No thanks, in the middle of a deep dive with our team. Okay. That's good. I'm just glad to see you. Well, we wanted to ban Jews continuing to flow into Palestine to try and restore the peace. But the Americans said you can't do that or we will cut off financial aid. Yeah. Like I said, since World War II, America's been the ringleader. And we just, like, I think some of this stuff about AIPAC gets, like, starts spilling into anti-Semitism. Like, so my biological dad and my mom, my biological mom, got divorced when I was like 3. And then my biological dad got remarried to a Jewish woman, Barb, who's just a wonderful person. And so I have a couple of half brothers that are Jewish. And I also have some really good friends who are Jewish, but they're also liberal. And they really feel like kind of homeless in a lot of ways right now, because, like, if they say, you know, Israel should have a right to exist, then they get people on the left mad at them. And anyway, like, there's a friend of mine, he's a college professor. And after that Jewish couple was assassinated in DC a couple of years ago, he was on the show. And I was interviewing him. And he said, we just want a place to go where we can be safe. And I just thought, wow. Because the Jews didn't initially want to go to, you know, the homeland. Like, they were looking at an area in Madagascar. They were looking at an area in Argentina. And then they were looking at an area in, like, Central Africa. Like, they just wanted to go somewhere where they could have any area where it was their own and they could just settle there and not get murdered all the time. It seems like a fair desire, you know, to just, like, not be murdered for being who they are. The British didn't get off the hook. The United States filled the vacuum when they moved beyond Suez. Just wanted to put you on in the background while I am photo digging. Bibi is a great leader, period. Standing against, well, okay, but he is a terrorist. Why is it terrorism when it happens to Israel, but why is it not terrorism when Israel does it? They've displaced, I think now it's like 3 or 4 million people, destroyed their homes. They've killed over 100,000 people. Why is that not terrorism? What is the difference between them murdering people and Hamas murdering people? Okay, so this we've got So it's butterflybureau.com. Let me see. Hang on, I'm going to try this. This is Kitty's site. I'll show you real quick. All right. And they've got a podcast. And hang on. And we've actually, Kitty's been on the show a few times to talk about other stuff and to talk about this. Kitty is one of the smartest people I know. I just want to, she's an amazing person. So, all right, let me see. Share screen. And there we go. So this is it's on Substack, but they have a podcast there. There's one guy that is like seems to know everything that ever happened to anything to do with with the Epstein files. That he was a guest on the show. I'm guessing he's part of this, but I'm not positive. Like I haven't specifically asked Kitty if he's on it. But there's some other people that they've been working really hard on this for a really long time, and they've got this going now. So yeah, if you butterflybureau.substack.com, they've got articles, they've got podcasts, they've got notes, and so anyway, if you are interested in the Epstein files at all, that's the place to go. Which, by the way, I was looking at the news. I didn't catch it all, but on the news there was a Democrat that was just obliterating what's his name? The guy that wants to be the attorney general. Over the Epstein files. Okay, so whoa, I got way behind. Man, that's like I get caught up on the comments and then I get distracted for 1 minute and then all of a sudden everybody's commenting. All right. Okay. We be jamming, Ben says. I just subscribed to your account because of your awakeness. The reality America was built by immigrants. So, thank you. And if anybody else wants to subscribe, go ahead. I just we've got 2 Bens. Now I have 2 subscribers named Bens. Does that make me a has-been? All right. That was, see, I've got to get a pun in every now and then. Thank my mom. Hope you like jamming too. The International Criminal Court wants him. South Africa is taking Israel to court in the ICJ. It's all Freemasons and the Jesuits making up wars between people now and throughout history. I don't know anything firsthand about that. Like, I tend to avoid conspiracy stuff. Netanyahu is genocidal psychopath. I agree with that. We were all fighting Netanyahu in the Arab Spring times too. The guy just doesn't go away like Putin. Yahoo is as bad as Hitler ever was, dealing genocide to his neighbors. Yahoo? Are you saying that Netanyahu? Oh, Netanyahu. Okay. I was like thinking the Yahoo, the website. And that's what, it's I don't know if he's as bad as Hitler was, but he's pretty bad. I mean, like he's not baking Palestinians in ovens or anything yet, but I was reluctant to use the word genocide for a long time because, you know, obvious history. Um, and I would always say, if they were really doing genocide, they'd be going after Lebanon too. And now they're going after Lebanon too. So now I'm just like, yep, it's genocide. Just because, you're victims of genocide doesn't mean you can't do genocide. What's happening in the Golan Heights is outrageous. What is happening in Golan Heights? I'm not up on that one. Is that southwest Syria? It has been occupied and administered by Israel since that, okay, yeah. Covers roughly 444 square miles, and yeah, well, that's the 6-day war thing. And the U.S., this is one of those things where I say it's more the U.S.'s fault now. The U.S. is the only country in the world that recognizes that specific piece of land belongs to Israel. We have the right to exist, and they are taking away our way of life and making us all look overseas while they do it. We pay for. What do you mean? We pay for whose healthcare? Who is we and who is there? Are you saying that United States taxpayers pay for immigrants' healthcare? Because that would be inaccurate. The Hebrews the Bible is talking about are not modern crypto Jews bombing Gaza. No, but the people that are Jewish aren't all like bombing Gaza either. That's like I was saying that the casino owners aren't the same thing as the Indians that we stole the land from. It's called a noble, what is it? Noble something fallacy. That they aren't that same group of people does not mean that they don't have a right to exist and not be murdered. Like I think that my position on the whole Gaza Israel thing is, if you're a Palestinian, you have a right to not be murdered, and if you're Jewish, you have a right to not be murdered. Like we need to stop justifying the murder of one group by saying that the other group did murdering too. Both sides in this conflict have been wrong, and both sides in this conflict have been wronged. October 7th was wrong, but October 7th does not vindicate everything that Israel and Netanyahu have done since October 7th. I mean, to me, that's just clear. I don't know how there's confusion over that. No more borders, no more religion. Jordan Maxwell is correct about religion. Except that atheists have done plenty of murdering people too. Mao Zedong was an atheist. Stalin was an atheist. Lenin was an atheist. Atheism kills just as many people as religion does. It's extremism. It's insistence that you have to go along with what I believe. That is the concern. Most of them Jews aren't even Semites when they came. I don't care what their DNA says. When it comes to this is another. Sorry to keep throwing out the word fallacy, but there's another fallacy that's called a etymology fallacy, where you use a word that has an original meaning to mean something else, but when people talk about Semites, yes, it can mean people from the Middle East, or it can mean the Jewish people. And when you swap back and forth the meaning, it's a fallacy. When people say anti-Semitic, they don't mean people against that you're against the people that live in that area. It means you're against the Jewish faith and people of Jewish descent. They are not. There's no such thing as fake Jews. If they're Jewish enough to get murdered, they're Jewish enough to be Jewish. Genocide, period. Oh, that's crap, James. Just because you're Eastern European doesn't mean you can't follow the Jewish religion. Terrorism is terrorism. Genocide is genocide. It doesn't matter what they say the justification is. It's wrong and morally bankrupt. I agree. Genocide is bad. But genocide is not the appropriate answer to genocide. Either way. Other than claiming it where it is written, it's theirs to begin with. Kind of like we did over here in Lamar. Oh, look where we found. Are you saying that the Jews were kicked out of Israel? But by the Romans. Well, they were kicked out of Jerusalem and then they fled. This is weird. The bicentennial was amazing. How I wish. Oh, wait. Why am I? That was weird. For some reason, I'm getting comments from the beginning of the show. Anyway. So Harry had to go. No way. No, we pay for the health care of billionaires. Yes. Something happened with my comments. They're all jumbled up. There were people in America long before Columbus and USA said to be the land the Bible is talking about. I don't know anything about that. Hello from Tel Aviv. Harry says that is literal insanity. What's happened in USA is outrageous. They closed everyone around with needles full of death and caused hyperinflation. They chased everyone around with needles full of death. What are you talking about the COVID vaccine? What are you talking about? The needles full of death. There is not a single person that has died from the COVID vaccines. No, we pay for the health care of billionaires. Ben is denying the existence of Jewish people. It's insane rhetoric. Amen, brother. Yeah, no, I mean, Jewish people exist. I mean, it's that's not really a place to have a conversation. No, we pay for the Israelis' health care. By all the money we give to them, they can afford free health care. Eye for an eye. I mean, I don't know. Eye for an eye and the whole world is blind. Throughout history, the Vatican has propagated and armed and instigated wars between the two. predominantly Semitic populations to make wealth off them, mutually destroying each other. Okay, but there's this impression that the Arabs and the Jews were like killing each other for, all this time. Actually, the Jews and the Arabs got along for the most part fairly well up until the 1850s. All right. In the 1850s, the Ottomans, well, okay, the Ottoman Empire had been ruling for like 600 years. There was like a brief period of time, I think, where the Attila the Hun, or was it where the Mongols took over briefly, but for the most part, Muslims were ruling that land either through the Ottomans or through their predecessors for like 1,000 years. And they had a kind of rule where they allowed both Christians and Jewish people to live more or less self-governing as long as they paid their taxes. They had, can't think of the word for it, but they had this kind of philosophy that Christians, Muslims, and Jews all followed the same God. And so they were all allowed to kind of just rule for themselves as long as it was within certain parameters and as long as they paid their taxes, which was the most important part. But near the 1850s, the Ottoman Empire started getting into some financial trouble, and they needed to raise some money. And so they said, you need to register your land. And so a lot of the farmers in the Palestinian area, they were kind of out there. They weren't, they were further out, and they weren't all that trusting of the government either. And so either one, they didn't know they were supposed to register, B, they didn't know how to register, or C, they didn't want to register because they didn't trust the government. So a lot of these farmers who had been on that land and occupying that land, whether they owned it or not, for like generations, they didn't register it. And so these oligarchs started registering the land and claiming it was theirs, even though they had never even been there. And then they, a few years later, around, I want to say it was 1853 or 1854, they started, they passed another law that said you could sell land to foreign investors. All right. And this is about the same time that in Europe, they had been for like 1,000 years. They had been persecuting Jews, and what happened there is the Jews were allowed to loan money because they weren't Christians. And if you were a Christian, it was against the law to loan money. And so the Jews would loan all the money, and they were the only ones allowed to loan money. And that's the only thing they were allowed to do, which, is where a lot of the tropes come from. But not because they wanted to do that. That was just, this is all you are legally allowed to do. And so then what would happen is people would owe them a lot of money. Then when the economy went bad, it would be their fault. The monarchy, whichever one it was and wherever it was, would blame the Jews for it. They would chase the Jews out and persecute the Jews and sometimes murder them, and then steal all their debt. And then the people that owed the Jews money then owed the monarchy money. And so they got, England did it, Spain did it, France did it, Germany did it, Poland did it, Russia did it. And they just kind of get driven around Europe. And every once, they just have to keep starting over. So they got tired of that. They wanted to get out of there. And so then there was a movement to establish a homeland for the Jews where they could go and, as my friend said, just not be killed. And so this movement was created to go back to where they initially came from. And so they started to buy this land that was suddenly up for sale. And if you look around 1852, it was like 2 or 3% of the population of the area we now know as Israel was Jewish. By the time you got to World War II, it was like 40%. And then after World War II, what was that called? There was the Nakba. That's the word I'm looking for. And the Nakba was they just drove the Palestinians out of their homes and chased them all the way to, Gaza now, right? And they kept pushing them and pushing them. You have the 6-Day War where they took over more land. You had the occupied territories, which now they keep taking more and more of. Now they're taking over Gaza. They've got like half of Gaza. And so they just keep squeezing the Palestinians into this smaller and smaller pocket of land. So it's never been about religion. It's always been about the land. And it's only been going back like 150 years. The Jews and the Muslims did not have this ancient religious rivalry the way that, and until I started reading about it and learning about it, that was my thought. But it's not an innately religious conflict. Now, since World War II, there have been religious extremists on both sides that have made religion a key part of it. But the genesis of this whole thing was not anything to do with religion. Undocumented immigrants have paid more into this country than any of the billionaires have paid, and they do not need to get the benefits of this. This is documented in many places. And it's documented by, among other places, the IRS. There is, they have a specific tracking of people that either have social security numbers that, are or have employer ID numbers. Like employer ID numbers are literally, taxes paid by undocumented people, but that are here by permission of the government now, like asylum seekers and whatnot. And there are like billions of dollars that they contribute that they never get back. And that's just in federal taxes. That's not counting the sales taxes, the property taxes, and all the other kinds of taxes that get paid. So Kitty is 100% correct here. Undocumented immigrants contribute far more to this country than they will ever see again. But that was apparently not about undocumented people. The question was about sending money to Israel. And I don't think we send money to Israel for medicine, but somebody could argue, well, there's fungible. But there's also like people that live in that area that would happily kill all the Jews if they were allowed to. And that doesn't mean that it's, like I said, both sides have done wrong and both sides have been wronged. What do you call a Jewish person that doesn't practice the religion? I don't call them anything. I just call them Jewish. I mean, look what Mondami has been able to do just by taxing second homes, right? It's an ethno-religion because Jews open the gates of Toledo. I don't know what the gates of Toledo are. Also, Ottomans and Arabs had generational beef with that empire. It was not lasting. My dad used to say, "Holy Toledo." What does that mean? I always thought it was just referring to Toledo, Ohio, which is really not that holy of a place if you've ever been there. It's not bad, it's just not holy. Mafia is based on Arabic saying Sicily was an Islamic emirate for 500 years. Muslims and Jews were only allowed to coexist if they paid protection money. I don't know about that. I wouldn't be surprised. Did you ever see True Romance? How do you say your name? Is it Hugh? How? Hughes? Did you ever see True Romance? That where he goes on and on. What was the actor? It was Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper. And like just both of them were amazing. And in the whole scene where he's like talking about Sicily. And I think here. I don't know why. I think, okay, you know what? I think maybe had a thing making my browser run slow. The one thing I can't deny is Israel won a war with no U.S. support. Source for what? You're one blurry man. Carry on, blurry man. I believe in you. Maybe that's my garage band's name. Blurry man. The USA runs people off and kills people who want the government and Federal Reserve Bank trust owe money to. I'm not sure what you're getting at. Because the rich owe the mainstream news, they manage, because the rich own the mainstream news, they manage to get you people to believe that poor people are the problem when it's the rich that are sucking us dry. It is. It's really, I mean, that Murdoch. I can't tell you, like, if you are not old enough to remember what life was like before Rush Limbaugh and Fox News came along. I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm just saying the entire news environment has just radically changed to where the messaging is all political now. It used to be you'd watch the news to get the news. And like I remember in 1981, and I was 14, you know, I wasn't like an adult. But or in 1980, the election. So I was 13. But I was always like way weird when it came to politics. Like I was way ahead of my age. And so I remember sitting down and looking at the newspaper, because this was back when people looked at newspapers, and there was a whole page of the newspaper that had like what different issues were, what Ronald Reagan thought and what Jimmy Carter thought, and you know, you could like review them and kind of like get an idea of who you were going to vote for. And it was was balanced. It presented everything in a way that was both accurate and like both sides, both of them would have agreed this is actually what I think. It was more about what they wanted to do than what the other person wanted to do. I wish we could go back to that. I wish we could go back to like where we looked at politics as these are the problems and let's figure out a way to solve them. We need to fix immigration. Like our immigration system is broken. Whether you're feel like we need more immigrants or less immigrants or whatever, how we fix the whole, like the high asylum, you have, you know, Donald Trump wants to just pretend that asylum doesn't exist anymore. Now, all they have to do is just not let people come into the country to request asylum and problem solved. Nobody else can request asylum. But that means now there's no fundamental human right to seek asylum in America. Unless you're, a white South African that is screaming that, you're the real victim of genocide. People on vacation pay sales tax. That doesn't mean they are citizens. Nobody said they are or that they do. It's kind of I'm just saying people that live here pay taxes. Kitty is both the rich and the poor. That's the issue. I mean, do you think that like people go to, go to the store? You think undocumented migrants go to the store and then it's like, they're like, that'll be $4.73. And then, oh, no, I'm illegal. I don't pay sales taxes. And do you think that the state or the city, when they're, sitting there funding the school, do you think they pull some of that out and they say, well, this is the illegal immigrant part, so we need to refund that to the illegal immigrants? Like, my point is that illegal immigrants pay those taxes. Those taxes actually fund things for society. And if you remove that money, it's not going to get just replaced by magic. And the people that work jobs, they do things, and those things that get done need to get done often, right? Like the ones that go and they pick strawberries, those strawberries get picked because they pick them. If nobody's there to pick them, they won't get picked. It's just human labor is necessary, and the labor they do is a positive aspect of society. That's why people like, you're not talking about like liberal institutions when you talk about Wharton that talk about mass deportations could lead us into a recession. Kitty, it's both the rich and the poor. That's the issue. The rich, what is both the rich and the poor? The rich convinced the middle class the workers were the problem. The rich have been convincing the middle class that the workers were the problem since we became a country. There's a book. It's called White Trash. I haven't mentioned this in a while. Here, I'll drop this link in if you ever want to read. Read a really interesting book. Here's one for you. It's called White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America. And it's a book that goes through all of American history and shows how the rich white people have been convincing the poor white people and the middle class white people that they're going to end up like the minorities if they don't keep the minorities down. The black people are coming from their jobs, whether that was, if you free the slaves, then you're going to be the slaves. Going back to that Reconstruction, and then in after World War II, when they started doing the redlining, then it's like, oh, black people move into your neighborhood and then your value starts to go down. Then your home is going to be not have any value because black people live there. So don't let black people in your neighborhood. It's always been our history. The rich, that our history is a big part of rich white people convincing middle class and poor white people that the poor black people and brown people are the real problem. You can't blame the poor people. They are just victims of wars, financial wars, spiritual wars, physical wars. And a lot of times when you're talking about the people that are the immigrants that are coming up here nowadays, those are the victims of wars that we started. We've overturned 48 governments in South America since 1908. Yeah. Quentin Tarantino was, I think he was a writer or something for that. But that's a fantastic movie. Got Christian Leitner and what's her name? Anyway, Patricia Arquette. She used to follow me on Twitter. My brother was jealous of me because she wouldn't just follow me. She actually sometimes would reply and even DM to each other a couple of times. So yeah, my younger brother was jealous of me because he had a big crush on her. The idea of the global worker is the problem in the same way, and the rich who had loyalty to no land are a problem. I look at organized religion of any type the same way, a way to control the masses. The Anunnaki probably programmed in USA. I just think that's an oversimplification. I think that people use religion to control the masses, but that I don't think that everybody that every religion, that's what's going on. And people use atheism the same way. People use ideology. Donald Trump is using ideology to control the masses. Yeah, you can't find a MAGA capable of an independent thought. And some of that is religion, but it has nothing to do with the Bible. Seriously, Rush Limbaugh messed a lot of people up back in the day. Yeah, he looks up now and then and sees what he created. And he's like, that's why I'm where I'm at. Poverty is a source of crime, so poor people are objectively a threat to me because I have proximity to them. Rich people are also causing problems, but not on the level that is relatable. Maybe if rich people paid poor people more money, then you wouldn't have poverty. I always love it when people are like, complain that about poor people as though it's poor people's fault they don't make enough money. One thing I think is we need to one of the issues we really need to address in this country is if you work for a living, you should be able to live off of your working. You should be able to afford to live off of the work you do. I'm not like people act like if you say that, then it means that you're not at all for, somebody being able to make more money. I just think everybody should be able to make enough money, especially if they work for a living. And especially if they can't work for a living. Like if you're a disabled person, you shouldn't have to sit there and work for a year when you can't work, which is the system we have right now. Rush was a moron. Clinton wasn't even socially left wing. They were crying about nonsense. Clinton was I'd say he's a centrist. But back in he at least when I was in the Air Force, tell you another story. When I was in the Air Force, I was in the Air Force from 1986 to 1990. Okay. Got out in October of 1990. And when I was in Italy, I was stationed at Lackland first, and then I went to Italy. And when I was in Italy, there were about a half dozen gay people there. And it was a smaller base. And, they were not out gay, but if you knew them, you knew they were gay. And so one day I went to the club, and one of them, we walked home together, and I was hanging out in his room, and he's like, hey, do you want to hook up? And I'm like, no, I'm not gay. I was like, I don't have a problem. You are. Don't worry about it. And we just didn't talk about it again. A week later, another one of them said, "Hey, you want to hook up?" I'm like, "No, I don't know why. I don't know why people were thinking I was gay." Only 2 times it ever happened, and it was like a week apart. So I was like, "I'm not gay, but this guy is. If you're interested, I could introduce you." And so the next day, turns out the second guy wasn't gay. The second guy was part of the OSI, the AFOSI, Air Force Office of Special Investigations. And I get called over to the AFOSI. I get called over to the actual office. And they're like, "Yeah, we want to talk to you." I'm like, "About what?" And they're like, "We need you to sign a statement saying that this person is gay so that we can prosecute him." I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I just sat there and lied through my teeth. I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Nobody told me they were gay." I wasn't going to send somebody to Leavenworth because they were gay, but that's what they wanted to do. They were literally wanting to send a man to Leavenworth for being gay. That was the situation in 1990. Like, people don't realize how anti-gay society was back then. So then when Clinton came along and was like, "Don't ask, don't tell," that was a huge step for gay rights. And then Obama got rid of "Don't ask, don't tell," because by then it was all like, why do you have to keep it a secret? But "Don't ask, don't tell" stopped the kind of investigations like that I experienced there. The military stopped actually having sting operations to bust gay people. So Clinton definitely moved some of this social stuff to the left. Legit just pointing to lie. Rush was a moron, but maybe he was doing it on purpose. He was clever in terms of how he sold lies. When I was in college, I took a class on logic, and it was like you'd work like that. It was can't remember the word for it. It was I think it should be something that propositional logic. And it's like you take an argument and you actually map it out like a math equation. And so, like, if A equals B and sum of B is C, does that mean A equals C? And and you would like work it out like a math proof, right? And then you would take actual arguments and you would put it in there, and then you'd be like, "Oh, okay, that's a fallacy." Like, that's why I talk about fallacies a lot. And so one day the professor assigned us, go home and take your, like a favorite politician or pundit or somebody, and map out their argument, and then see if it's logically sound. Like, I want you to come back, and we had to like show our proof, our homework. And so Rush Limbaugh lost a lot of fans that day. A lot of people came back, like a third of the class came back. "Oh man, Rush Limbaugh sucks," because he would say things, and once you learned how to think, you would say, "Oh, this is a fallacy." So anyway, I think propositional logic should actually be a required high school course. I think if people knew how to think and not just what to think, America would be a better country. How these people affect the minds of the masses is dangerous. I agree. I pay all my fornicating taxes. Yes. But so do immigrants. Trump is using illegals as a scapegoat to normalize mass legal immigration from H-1 visas from India and China. Big tech are the only people who benefit from such a system of get cheaper workers. That's true. There is also the fact that We don't just need H-1B visas. Like, America was built on immigration, not just coming over and doing the really good jobs. America was built on immigration, immigrants coming over and doing the really crappy jobs. Immigrants built the railroads. Immigrants built the skyscrapers. Immigrants pioneered the West, and with the caveat that, not all of that was necessarily positive. But if you're just talking about what made America America, most of that was done by immigrants. Did you know that children of immigrants are twice as likely as children of American-born citizens to start their own business, to be an entrepreneur? I think immigrants love the country as much or more than actual Americans do. Or when I say actual Americans, I mean people that are here for 2 or 3 generations. I'd rather strawberries rot in the ground than have to rely on importing cheap labor. Why? That doesn't make sense. The farmers need them, right? The average farmer, you've got small independent farms and you've got the corporate farms. Small independent farms, like a lot of the strawberries, I use strawberries specifically because strawberries can't be automated. You need that work done by hand. And it needs to be done, and it's not just strawberries. There's a lot of other products like that. And in order to get legal immigrants to do it, you have to do things like you have to advertise for 30 days the job and show that the job isn't filled out. Then you have to apply for the visas, and then you have to advertise in other countries to get people to get the job. Then you have to pay for their transportation to come here. Then you have to pay for their rent and their food while they're here. Then you send them back, and then plus the paycheck. So the cost of a documented worker for for a small-time farmer is like $7,000 per worker. And the average, amount of money that they make in a year is about maybe $40,000-$50,000 on average. And so if they're talking about that, if they need 10 workers and they need to pay an extra $70,000 to get those workers to work on their farm to get the products, the produce done, then you got a problem, right? You're losing $20,000 every year, especially when you're already talking about a system where small farms, we've lost over a quarter of small farms over the last 40 years. We could lose another quarter over the next 5. It's getting worse. So we need a system where people can legally pay immigrants to keep their farms operating. This is one of those things where I'm like, it's people need to understand what the problems are instead of just yelling things. And now if we change the system, then it's actually better for the immigrants too, right? The immigrants can, like they have rights now. They don't have to work for less money than a native worker. By native, I mean American-born citizen, not a Native American. All right, and then you've got the fact that if they can come over here permanently, they don't have to. You don't have to like train a new group of people every single year. Maybe some of them can grow up and become the foreman. So, like having a pathway to citizenship could benefit everybody, the farmer and the worker and the children. I don't know why it's like this idea that, oh, you can't have value unless you have a degree or something. A lot of people who didn't have degree, their kids went on to have degrees and make a difference. Did you know that the song America the Beautiful was written by an immigrant, Russian immigrant? The country was torn apart by Freemasons, but it was built by Freemasons. So I don't know any. I've never like gotten into all the Freemason stuff. All I know about Freemasons, I learned watching National Treasure when I was a kid. But most of the Anaheim, California, was strawberry fields back in the early '60s, owned by mostly Japanese citizens. Interesting. Okay, so you are older than your picture looks. My brother is good and evil, does not operate in currency of money, but works using the currency of their soul. Anyone from any class, both high and low, can hurt others, and anyone of any class can help others. But in general, the U.S. still has a history of this, right? Back in and it just changes, right? Like back in the 1700s, you'd have like the indentured servitude, the indentured servants. Well, even before slavery, you had indentured servants that were doing the work, and then they got replaced by the slaves. And then they would go, they would go, and they would just like, they were called mud eaters, and they'd go and they'd just find a plot of land and they'd dig it up and they'd turn it into a farm, and then they would cultivate it. And then once that was all done, the deeds were given by, like the king or whatever, and it would just be like, you've got from this parallel to this parallel as far as it goes, right? And so all the land was owned by somebody, and technically. And so then the landowner would they would grow, they would abuse their soil. Nobody knew about like rotating crops or anything, and so they just grow the cotton until they stripped the soil of all its value, and then they would just move, and then they would say, oh, look, we're just going to take your land, and then take this land that you've been working on, and kick them off. This whole country's history has a long history. It's not just a history. There is a long history of racism, but it's not just a history of racism. It's a history of classism, and it's kind of an understated part of it. But it's not just a history of classism and racism. It was a history of using racism to vindicate classism. They want to get us to fight among ourselves instead of fighting them. Yes, that's perfectly stated. Facts, thumb up. Cameron Diaz. Yeah, Cameron Diaz. She's in love with me. I'm not. She's never actually said that, but she's never denied it. So I'm fairly certain it's true. The top 1% have the potential to be dangerous. I agree. What we should do is create a society where only true and just and moral people rise to the top of our society. If you can figure out how to do that, that would be splendid. But the bottom 1% are also dangerous. What is, like, the bottom 1% are dangerous? What makes somebody dangerous because they're poor? To be in the bottom 1% if you have made bad choices and don't contribute. That's not that's a supposition without any qualification. Sometimes people are poor not by choice, not by laziness. The hardest job I ever worked for, the hardest working jobs I've ever had were minimum wage jobs. You ever worked at McDonald's? I used to have to bust my butt when I worked at McDonald's. Um, just because somebody is poor does not mean they don't work hard. It usually means they actually work harder. How do I get on this bro's chat? What do you mean? Do you want to come on like on the stream, or how do I get him to read my chat? I'm reading your chat. Sorry. I'm just like behind, buddy. God didn't write the Bible. Man did, and Jesus didn't have anything to do with it either, come to think of it. Define living. Okay, for me, when I say, if you work for a living, you should be able to live off your working. I'm talking about like the fundamental, like I think you should be able to like have a home, eat, like like shelter, food, clothing, healthcare, the basics, and I would say still be able to have some joy in your life. Like, I'm not going to begrudge somebody a Netflix subscription. Not all poor crimes are people robbing bread, brother. At least it can be said now until it becomes illegal to speak your mind. Yeah, if Donald Trump has his way, it won't be too long before that's the case. Apparently, they arrested they've arrested that or filed charges. They subpoenaed the Olympian for like touching water. We got to speak our minds, brother. Show me the biggest criminals out there working the White House, especially. Yeah, the real vandal is Donald Trump. Before this dude with the glasses takes our lives. You talking about me? Or I hear you hear your mom calling. You were born in the 60s and you hear your mom calling? All right. Talk to you later, James. Thanks for dropping in. Even when gay marriage was passed by the Supreme Court, not even Cali supported it. I don't think that's true. They make everyone gay and then they persecute gay people. The way they make everyone do drugs or get poor and persecute them, they make money off of keeping everyone messed up. I don't know who they is here, or how they're doing all this stuff. I don't think they've made everybody gay. I don't think anybody has made everyone gay. If they tried to make everybody gay, they forgot me because I'm not gay. USA citizens get taxed. Not that there's anything wrong with being gay. USA citizens get taxed on everything, even when they leave USA for the rest of their lives. Well, everybody pays taxes. There's no country in the world where you don't pay taxes. But USA was funded on a tax result. Well, it was actually founded on a representation revolt. It wasn't no taxation. They said no taxation without representation. The goal was representation. If you're going to ask us to fund the government, we should be a part of the government. We are all going to either have to get used to the fact that the dollar is worth less, or we are going to have to hold citizen grand jury trials. I think there's probably some more answers than one of those two things. The American experiment has failed. Point. They always, now I know why there's, reading through these comments, I think I know why nobody wants to go to the 250th thing. They always were allowed to come and work in the private sector. USA forces everyone to work under birth certificate names. A lot of those farms get sold because the children leave for college and don't come back to run them. Nah, that's not really why. We all have been unpaid indentured servants to the federal government and Federal Reserve Bank Trust. They didn't pay us all to act as stewards or trustees to benefit. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to disagree with this, Ben. It's getting a little cuckoo. Finances do not make you dangerous. Nobody at McDonald's makes minimum wage. Well, they did. when I worked at McDonald's. When I worked at McDonald's, it was 1983 and 1984, and I was making $3.35 an hour. I don't know what people make at McDonald's. I think there are still places where people pay minimum wage. My point is that not making a lot of money does not mean you're not working hard. I know people, like, just my life history is I worked harder when I made less money, and I didn't work as hard when I made more money. Minimum wage should be $100 an hour. I don't know if it needs to be that. I wonder if we'd be better off if we tied minimum wage to local economies, because not every neighborhood and not every city has the same cost of living. I just think that you should be able to survive off of your labor if you're working 40 hours a week. What's your thoughts on the root of all human evil? Does it exist in all our hearts? Well, there's it. I think that all people are capable of it, and I think all people are capable of good. Average hourly pay for McDonald's crew here in Philadelphia is between $12 and $13 an hour. Pennsylvania minimum wage is $7.25. A lot of people are out of farming because of taxes and inheritance taxes. Cheaper just to sell at Donald Trump's golf course builders. All right, so we're over 2 hours. I'm actually going to jet now. I'm going to end a little early today. Jack Smith is on MS now, and I've been wanting to watch this interview. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. It's nice to meet the Bens. And good to talk to you again, Walter. I'll see everybody tomorrow. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye.